Hello there, and welcome to the Crystal Ball Hour with me, Dr. Elisa. Thank you for joining me. We're going to have a bit of a mystical hour together, and I hope you love it. I'm not even going to tell you how much I love being here with you. I'm sure you can hear that in my voice. And today, I have so much to share. Let me start with a couple things. First off, I already did the thank you, right? But also, I have an amazing sponsor, veteranspride.org. And remember, I set a goal of all of us being philanthropists by the end of the year. This is a great place to donate just a bit to help veterans, to help them feel proud for their contribution and their service. I'm also my own sponsor, and so you can find me at elisarobin.com, and I am available for what I call SOS readings, which is I just need to talk to someone for half an hour or an hour or more. And then I have the deeper dive soul sessions and the packages around branding, around your love life, and around spiritual growth. Also have some great shout outs today before we really get started. I want you to know, we're a radio station, KUHS Denver, the stream. We really want to support our community. And so we're doing that. Just so you know, health and family are essential. We know that, and they deserve the best protection. To connect, so we want them to connect for health. Colorado is the official health insurance marketplace in Colorado. Connect for Health Colorado. It's the only place that offers financial help to lower the cost of coverage. Sorry, I'm having trouble reading. But you can find them at 855-752-6749. And Tuesday on the Nooner with Paul Chavez, Andy Figueroa with Alliance Resources for Small Businesses in the city of Thornton is going to be on. You definitely want to tune into that. In part because it's going to be a great show. In part because changes are coming, and they're wonderful and marvelous, and these are the kinds of changes that can help you. These are the kind of resources that can help you. So, okay, there's some of my short announcements. As always, I like to just tell you about my book and maybe read a little bit for you today. It's The Way of the Well. It is a spiritual adventure romance. And if you're getting tired of me talking about this one, just wait. Dark Fire will be out hopefully by the end of the year. It's my second novel. Has a vampire and vampire sex in it. An octopus, and an amazing dog. And a magic closet, and some really great spiritual lessons mixed in with all of that. You can read the first chapter and see if you like that, and maybe even give me some feedback at elisarobin.com. So today, here on the Crystal Ball Hour, I am available for live readings. How are you going to get a reading? You got a couple ways. The easiest, go to the Facebook site for the Dr. Elisa Show, and I am tracking posts there. You can also go to KUHS Denver, and I should be live streaming there in a minute, and you can post questions there. Or Henry Archuleta Facebook, and you can post questions there. That one should be up soon. If you know me, you can direct message me on Facebook, and I'm going to be trying to monitor all of that while we're going. So you have a chance, and these are just free channeled readings. Let me tell you about, let me get back to my book first, and then I'll tell you. Okay, so the crystal ball technique is in this book, and I thought it might be fun to just read something for you, because right now the world could just use a little bit of love. Let's just say that. And I don't know if you've had this experience as a writer, but often in my life I've forgotten what I've written, and then I go back and read it, and I'm kind of blown away. I love your feedback on my writing too. By the way, if you go to elisarobin.com, my blog comes out probably every other week, and I'd love it if you gave me some feedback on that. I write because I'm a writer, but writers love it when people read their work. So my first book, I was just going through it a little bit, and for many reasons. And there's a portion at the very end of the book where the main character, Rachel, has met Joshua. And they've gone through the entire book pretty much together, with adventures. And he has asked her via crystal ball, and I think via wine glass, actually, to marry him. And I think I read that to you a few weeks ago. And now he's actually in the space with her. And he talks to her about the eyes of love, and that he always sees her through the eyes of love, and that when you look at people through the eyes of love, that they're beautiful. It means that, and so she says to him, what does that mean? The eyes of love. I rolled it around in my mind for a minute, playing with it like a cat with a marble. It is lovely, but what does it mean? It means that my love for you colors my experience of anything you do. My love is unconditional. That is what you see in my eyes. Absolute awareness of who you are. Total acceptance of the heart song that is Rachel. There's nowhere to hide because I see all of you. And you love what you see? I love the way your heart song calls to mine. His grin was lecherous for a moment. And I love the package that it comes in, too. I just love that notion. And he goes on a little bit later and talks about that when we see people through the eyes of love, we're not afraid of them. He is a trail builder for the National Forest in this story, and he talks about when he sees the forest through the eyes of love, he knows how to build a trail in a way that people will love hiking on it. That when he sees a lost soul on the street, he can see past his fears and see them through the eyes of love, and realize that we're all children of light. All children of whatever you call that. Remember, the show is spiritually multilingual, which means if I say light and you want to hear God, go for it. If I say God and you want to hear universal energy, rock it. That's good. So he then reaches into his pocket. I kind of love that I wrote this, right? And he pulls out the bag that she had seen that holds the engagement ring that he had shown her through the wine glass. And time slowed down. So this is Rachel thinking. And part of my mind noticed how right Einstein was. Time is relative. A minute can feel like an hour. It took at least that long for him to pull open the bag, turn it over, and empty it into his palm. It took even longer for him to take the heavy gold and ruby ring in his other hand and walk toward me. My feet were frozen in place. My stomach was full of schizophrenic butterflies. My knees felt like melted rubber. All of this as I monitored with one small part of my brain. The rest of me focused on Joshua. This is a family engagement ring. My mother has held on to it all these years, hoping I would use it someday. I think you agreed to wear it. I just stared at him. Was I supposed to nod? Was a wine glass proposal also a family tradition? Was he going to say the words, or was I going to be left wondering? Would this adventure be continued next week? Okay, so that's just a part of the book. Really, you'd enjoy it. You can get it on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, lots of places. So what are we going to talk about today? You'll watch me, if you're watching me live, you'll note that I have the clear crystal ball with me. I have my lovely pure black crystal ball with me. I have all four of them, right? Got my amethyst, and I have my tiny traveling agate crystal ball. And when you ask a question, I'm guided towards one of them to answer. You know the story. I learned this by looking at candles through red wine glasses. This is how I learned to do it. And I have to say that that still shows up in my next book, Dark Fire. And that if you put a glass in front of me full of red wine and some candles, there's a good chance I'm going to channel. And I just want to talk to you about that for a minute, because people are still wondering what I'm doing. When I'm channeling, when I'm reading the crystal ball, I'm channeling. I'm channeling your guides, but you've got to remember that my guides also talk to me too. In fact, the more I do this, and if you've been around for a while, you know that I came out on this radio station, KUHS of Denver, with this sort of talent I have, this skill, and didn't put it back in the box. I kept it out. And the more I use it, and the more I spend time channeling and meditating and being very, very present in my life, the more my overthinking shuts down, and the more my openness to spirit, my openness to getting messages shows up, and the more messages I get. So I want to talk to you today because it's such a weird time, isn't it? That you know that my tagline is igniting a renaissance of spirit, and that sometimes igniting that renaissance of spirit in other people ignites it in me. And that the channeling is something I love, and bringing these messages forward of comfort, of awareness. And sometimes, quite frankly, you know, my guides can be a little tough, and sometimes so can yours. But they're about guidance and about taking us forward and taking us somewhere we need to go, somewhere our soul craves. That soul craving that draws us, pushes us, pulls us, calls to us, sings to us, to the life we're supposed to live. And boy, the noise that's been going on between COVID and fires and elections and fear, so much fear, has made it so difficult for all of us to hear our own heart song, our own soul's song. Just the noise. So what I want to do today is talk to you a little bit about that. That so much of fear, so much of anger and hate is noise. And it's noise that comes because we're afraid. And we're afraid to admit we're afraid. And so many of us are. We've built lives based on being courageous, succeeding against all odds, being the winner. And that's America, right? That's what we do. And when it looks like we're going to lose, though, let me work with that word for just a minute. When it looks like we're going to have to change course, we become afraid. We're not losing. We're just shifting. I've used this example before. I love to sail. And sometimes you're sailing upwind. You're sailing into the wind, and you can't go directly into the wind. You have to go sideways. And it's a very long haul, and then you tack and turn the other way and go sideways. You're never on course, but you're always getting closer to your goal. And that's life. We don't get scared when we have to tack when we're sailing. Well, sometimes we do, because sometimes it's scary. If you're afraid, you might jibe instead of tack. But we're not afraid. We know it's what we're supposed to do to get closer to our goal. So, okay, what has that got to do with what's going on here? Oh, Pam, thank you for posting a question. And I'm going to get to you in just 1 minute. Okay, so hang on there. Thank you, anyone who's posting in Facebook. We are in a time where we have been held tight in fear, and the planets are doing that. Mercury has gone direct. It went direct on election day. Mars goes direct on the 13th, Friday the 13th. It's going to be a beautiful day because Mars goes direct. And all that pent up anger and fear, we get a deep breath. And for many of us, it's going to be, what was I afraid of? Why was I so angry? What's wrong with the change? Let me give it a chance. Just a chance. I don't have to declare it right, but I can open up to the idea that I'm tacking the boat. It's a switchback, like when you're climbing a mountain. I'm still headed somewhere. And it also means we get to clarify where we're headed. Because at the same time, we still have Pluto and Jupiter and Saturn conjunct. It's going to change. They're moving on. They're going to move into Aquarius by December 19th. And what we've got right now is the last pass of that. Do you want to stay stuck in the past? Is it more important to hold on to what was than to move forward into a glorious future? Are you that afraid? And if the answer is yes, that's fine. In fact, that's good, because you know it. It's our last look at that. And then we get to say, what am I afraid of? And what is it I really want? Do I want this person or that person? Or do I want a life that I love? Do I want my friends to be healthy and well? Do I want a planet of peace? Do I want things that people have wanted for eons, regardless of their spiritual background? And maybe to get that, I have to tack up wind, or maybe I have to take a switch back. Maybe I just have to let go of my fear, admit it, admit that I'm afraid, and stop looking at the world through the eyes of fear, but through the eyes of love. Hang with that thought, because a couple of you have posted questions. So Pam, thank you. You've been teaching children for 38 years, which is amazing, and I know you've loved it. But you're not sure what to do. You don't have the same perspective of teaching that you used to have. That's good. But you don't know how to work through it. Do you stop? Do you need to work just because the money pays? But the passion isn't there. Okay, that is an awesome question. Thank you so much for posting that to me. I really appreciate it. So let me, and you know I know you, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to talk to the person I know. I'm going to talk to your guides who came through really strong. As soon as I picked up this crystal ball, I have a guide behind me on my right. It is an older woman who's very direct in saying that, oh, this is so lovely, honey, that what you learned around education and teaching children was the seed of a theory, the seed of a perspective, and that seed has grown and it has blossomed, and now you're looking at the flowers on that perhaps rose bush, think of it that way, or magnolia bush, but these beautiful flowers. And when you look at those flowers, you realize that you have to approach it differently now, right? We approach a seed different than we approach a bush, different than we approach a flower. A flower gives us different information, and that the information you've had through the years, of course, is a new perspective, because you've added to your knowledge, you've added to your experience. What she's saying to me is everything you know, it was the start of a living document, the start of a living experience. It just was meant to launch you. It was not meant to hold you hostage. And that it might be time for you to spend, oh, this is interesting. She's saying she'd love to have you write your perspective down. Don't worry about publishing a book or writing it for anyone else. This is for you to own, for you to understand what your perspective is, and for you to listen carefully to what you write. Okay, listen carefully to what you have learned, so that if you wrote all that down, what you would read is your journey, and how that journey will inform you and about how to deal with students differently, how to deal with kids differently. Interestingly, she's saying to me that your time in the classroom needs a pause, and that your classroom will never look the same again. That it's time it's time for you to take this new perspective and work differently with. And in fact, it's so interesting because I'm going to have a show in a couple of weeks on women who've launched businesses during COVID. And what she's saying to me is, you have a way of teaching others and honoring what you do that will open new doors for you. And that the most important thing you can do is honor this new perspective and honor your own lessons and knowledge and ability to embrace what you know and to express it and to move forward from there. So that's one piece. There's something else I think coming through, and I'm just looking, and I know I have a couple more people in here, so please feel free to post more questions. Okay. There's also something, Pam, about you understanding why you love butterflies, and that process of the cocoon is something you have to allow for yourself. You have to be willing to go into the cocoon. And you know what I love about butterflies and the story of butterflies, and if you're listening to this and you don't know it, this is absolutely true. A caterpillar is actually born with these tiny, 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 not functional wings, tinier than you can imagine. And as a caterpillar, they eat and they grow, but the wings don't. The wings just stay these tiny, tiny little spots in themselves. And then the caterpillar goes into its chrysalis, and it actually becomes a liquid. Everything about the caterpillar dissolves except for those wings. And then the caterpillar reforms around the vision of who it's supposed to be. And when it crawls out of the chrysalis, its wings become strong enough to fly. And I've loved that story forever, and it's a profound lesson, I think, for all of us, that we change to the point of becoming a liquid and reforming who we are around our vision of ourselves in the future, our dream of who we want to be. And Pam, your guides are telling me that butterflies are your guide. Let me know how that resonates with you. Go ahead and post in the Facebook site. And thank you for posting in. Let me check and see who else we've got who's perhaps asked a question. Okay, I'm just checking. And then we're going to get back to this sort of astrology chat for those of you, just because. Now you know you want a reading, right? This is the Crystal Ball Hour on KUHS Denver, the stream, and I am your host, Dr. Lisa Robin. You know me, right? PhD at Psych, astrologer, and channeler. And I know you want a reading. In fact, I know you love listening to my voice. I know I'm a little hypnotic, so since I am, I'm going to hypnotize a few of you to posting questions in the Facebook site. You can go to my direct message link if you know me, if you're friends with me, or put a question in the Dr. Lisa Show site, because I am here to help you move that needle, right? We're going to move from looking at the world through the eyes of fear. We're going to leave that behind, and we are going to start looking at the world through the eyes of love. I don't care what your spiritual tradition is, that's in there somewhere. And when you look at the world through the eyes of love, something shifts. You know it does, right? You know, when babies are born, I heard somebody once say they all look like Mr. Magoo, right? They're not necessarily beautiful when they first pop out. And yet, the parents of that child are looking at that child through the eyes of love already. They've already been in love with that child. And they see beauty. They see a beautiful baby. That's what the eyes of love do. Why am I talking about that? Besides the fact that I want to encourage you to read my books and my blogs and my writing, because I love it when you read my stuff, right? ElisaRobin.com. It's because we are in a time where we're about to be reborn. This is a spiritual rebirth time. We're still in the time of the fire. We've got Mars still retrograde for a few days in Aries. We had Mercury retrograde, it went direct. We still have Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn conjunct, but they're moving on. Things are moving on. And we're going to enter the age of Aquarius, which is not necessarily the age of love, though if you go back to the hippie times, it's sort of the age of love. But it is the age of looking forward into possibilities and opportunities. And we're right on the edge, right? That's why I've been saying for months now, we'll probably have a vaccine in December. We'll probably have it. We won't all get it, but I bet we have one by December. We're pretty sure. What we've been doing in this time, in this crazy, crazy time, has been walking through the crucible, walking through a gauntlet of fire, and letting the parts of us that we need to say goodbye to burn off. The ways that we're afraid, the ways that we see the world through our own fears. And it's a hard shift, I have to say that, for all of us. Because you know, we're afraid to let go of what we've always known and what we've always done. And sometimes something wonderful walks into our life and we're afraid to embrace it because it's new and it's different. It's a little bit scary. And I'm as guilty as everybody else in this. And so what I've built, actually, is an entire workshop and class that I want to talk to you about a little bit, and then hopefully another reading. Somebody else will want a reading. And then we'll do a little more astrology. Come on, you know you want a question. You know you want to ask me something. You know you do. Okay. But you haven't yet. I want to talk about one of my favorite myths, which is about the Phoenix. We're in the time of Scorpio, the sun is in Scorpio, and I happen to adore Scorpio energy. And if I can say it, especially men with Scorpio energy, especially if they know how to use it right. And everybody thinks of Scorpio as the sign of sex in the zodiac. And I've said this before. Scorpios do love sex, and they do tend to be pretty good at it, is my experience. But they're not the only sign that loves sex, because if they were, all of our parents would be Scorpios, right? Everyone loves sex. Scorpios, not everyone, I'll take that back, some people, but all the astrological signs. However, Scorpio is willing to have it front and center. They're willing to have their passion front and center. They're willing to come from that. And while all the other signs have one symbol, Scorpio actually has three. At sort of its base level, it is a scorpion. At its next level, it's an eagle. At its highest spiritual level, Scorpio is the Phoenix. Why? Because the Phoenix, when it knows that it has lived the way it has to change, it knows it's come to the end of a cycle, it ignites itself by choice, sets fire to itself to burn into ash, to be reborn. Beautiful and new, full of colors, new wings that are strong, and knows that now it brings forward the lessons that it's learned, but it's not tied down by them. It can move forward. It can fly. And in fact, the blog I'm writing right now talks about that. The last one talked about it, if you go to my website, and the most recent one will too. That you know, the story about don't fly too close to the sun because your wings will melt. A phoenix's wings never melt. They can be burned in this fire. But just like that caterpillar who rebuilds itself around its wings, so does the phoenix. And so can you. Hold that thought. Let me just see what, oh, Pam, you're going to give me some feedback. Thank you. It has been what you're feeling. I think that's great. I definitely want you to hold back and to liquefy. I think that's great. Just Just hold that thought, okay? Because for you, the phoenix part is going into the chrysalis, liquefying and building around your wings. For many of us, the other image that works is that this year has set us ablaze. It has burned off all the things we needed and wanted, all the old ways we did things, and it's exposed our fears. And you know what? I think sometimes that's embarrassing. It's highly embarrassing to me when I don't seem courageous, when I seem fearful. And sometimes when we are embarrassed, we get angry. Especially you guys out there, in case you didn't know it, it's a thing. It's just a thing, right? That instead of being ashamed, people get angry. And what we're seeing there in the world around us is that anger is going to be burned off so that we can look at our fear. And that is when we know that the fire has done its work and we have returned to ash, and we can rise from that and spread our wings. So what's the class I'm building? This is much like a hero's journey, right? Joseph Campbell's hero's journey that you hear people talk about. Ed, thank you for a question. What actions would help the world move in a cooperative state versus the chaotic state? 2020 has definitely been chaotic. Thank you for the question. And I think that hopefully I'm answering some of that, but thank you for sort of focusing in. That when we approach the world with fear, things are chaotic. When we approach the world with anger, anything in our life, things are chaotic. Now, I'm not saying you should never be angry, and fear is a good thing, right? If you see a big bear coming at you, be a little afraid and make good choices based on what your fear is telling you to do, right? What you know you need to do to stay safe. Of course, sometimes we're angry, and we're human. And that anger, though, can be used in a way not to hurt others, but to focus ourselves, right? When I talk about being a philanthropist, most nonprofits are started because somebody got angry that something couldn't be solved. I'm on the board at the MS Society, and the woman who started that was upset because her brother had MS and no one knew anything about it, and that was the seed. It was her anger at not being able to help him. It was underneath that her fear of not being able to help him, and that launched the MS Society. We can use those things. We can absolutely use them in beautiful ways, as long as we remember that they're guides to do something better. They're not information, but to keep us trapped. When we have walked this year through the gauntlets of fire, we have tried to burn off all those things that have tied us. That's what the universe has intended. That's what the astrology has been trying to get us to do. Burn off the ways we're tied to the anchors of fear and anger and hate and all of that. Because you know what? That's not in anybody's religion. It's not in anybody's spiritual tradition. It's not in anybody's best interest at all. It's not. The trick is always, how do we build something better? That's always the trick, because there's so many opinions. But if we start with, let's give each other a chance. Let's just give each other a chance. We can do amazing things together from different points of view. And different points of view are good. Right? I don't want everyone to agree with me. It'd actually be a very odd world if you all were just like me. I don't want that. I want people to have different opinions so that we get to a better place. I hope that was halfway decent, Ed. Thank you for the question. So what happens when we walk through that gauntlet of fire? What does happen to us? Well, the first thing I think that does happen is that we are afraid, right? But then the flames die down, and we find ourselves surrounded by these ashes that are just sort of this life we've lived. We haven't lost the wisdom, because remember, we're going to hold on to these little wings, right? We stand up, our wings are there, and we can see the ashes of our fears, our angers, our limiting beliefs, the way we blamed others, our illusions that we were not loved and good enough You all know I come from a Kabbalah, Jewish tradition, and every morning we say, in Hebrew, Elohai neshama shenatata bi tahorahi. God, the soul you have given me is a pure one. Hashem, universe, whatever, the force, whatever. You've given me a pure soul, and I've been reborn this morning to try again, to keep it pure, to live it pure. That's like an amazing experience for me every morning, to wake up and remind myself to say that prayer. And that's what happens when we burn off all these limiting beliefs. We can focus back on the gifts we have and the gifts that we can bring forward. Again, I've talked about this. We can see it in a chart. This is your soul's craving. It's in your chart. And it's one of the readings I love to do, because we can lay it out in front of you together. This is your soul's craving. Here's what you came here to do. Just this. And this can change the world. This little thing of being authentic, being yourself, that can change the world. Oh, and by the way, the planets, that's what they're pushing us to do. Mars square, Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, pushing us to reveal our authentic self. That's powerful stuff. Scary, but powerful. When we can see those patterns, the ones that harmed us, we can also see our wounds and start to heal them. And that, I think, is one of the most amazing gifts. We heal. We know that we heal. It's so funny to me sometimes when people will say to me, I was wounded. Yeah, of course you were wounded. We're all been wounded. Well, I have scars. Yeah, those are good tracks of where you've been in life. And in fact, sometimes it is the scars that make us more beautiful. It's a Japanese notion, kintsugi, that instead of hiding the scars, the breaks, that's where we are illuminated. But that's where we shine. There's a Kabbalistic notion that a heart is not full until it's been broken. And that is through those cracks that spirit, that God, that Hashem, that the universe, energy enters, that love enters, and where our love shines out. And that's just an amazing notion. And the stars right now, not the stars, the planets, that's where they're pushing us. They're pushing us to notice what we've burnt off and to see our wounds as these beautiful tracks. And that's what happens when we step out of the ashes and follow our soul's craving. That's what happens. Isn't that like an amazing thought, that you have that power to be your true authentic self, and being that true authentic self, not walking in fear, but walking in your truth? That changes the whole world. Just hold that for a moment. Hold that thought. And where is it in your chart, you ask? It's in your north and south nodes, which I've talked about. So let's take a pause, right? Because I want to look at and see how many of you are brave enough to ask me a question. I know you're out there. I can also tell you that Spirit came to me, my guides came to me last night. Sometimes they'll wake me up at 2 in.the morning and I get information. And I did get information from one of my guides about something I just want to say to you, that is that there is life, that life does continue, and that often our fear is that the people we've lost left and they left in pain, they left in fear, they were hurting. My father was definitely in pain as he approached death, but in that instant of death, the pain disappeared. And my guides wanted me to tell you that pain does not continue, that someone who dies in some sort of painful way, it's an instant and they die and the pain is gone. And they now have clarity. We will have clarity of what our life's mission was and what our soul's journey was. And that living that soul's journey is sort of the notion. This doesn't actually exist in Judaism. We don't have like a heaven and a hell. We have a close to God, right? We have a heaven. We just don't have a hell. But that dying and having a spirit be sad that they did not live their authentic self, that's the worst that can happen to you. And then what happens? And again, so many traditions. Our soul comes back because we get another chance. And we're born with a pure soul and a chance to resolve that karma. Not just heal. Life is not only about healing. That's not what it's about. We don't come here broken and try to like fit our pieces back together. We come here pure and try to live that. We don't come here with the assignment of healing. A lot of things we're going to do will heal us, yes. And a lot of us are injured in this world, yes. Yes. And living our authentic life is what heals that. So I just want you to think about that. And the reason I do want you to is two reasons. One, again, as I've said, we're in this astrological side where instead of focusing our will, so we face a situation, or we face a relationship. And so many of us over this last year have tried to go to solutions or change the situation by force of will. And sometimes that is helpful, I will admit. By will alone can I pull this off, right? I will admit that. But that's not the time period we're in. Instead of pushing and struggling and working and trying and coming up with a solution, this is the time to let the fire burn you to ash, or, like Pam, to turn to a liquid in your chrysalis. To let then, as you are reborn, right, as you peek out from those ashes, as you peek out from that chrysalis, from that cocoon, to see the situation, the relationship, unfold in front of you, and then to engage with it. We always have a choice of how to engage, but let's first see it clearly, and then engage with it, instead of jumping to solutions. I see this, as you know, I was an academic dean for years. I taught graduate classes in many things, but definitely in leadership. And one of the things that is sometimes hard to get students to do is to stop going to solutions before you define the problem. Einstein said it once. He said, if you have something horrible about to happen and you have an hour to fix it, what are you going to do? And he said, well, first you spend the first 55 minutes making sure you understand the question and defining everything to do with the problem. And then the solution become clear in the last 5 minutes. This is not a time to fight and push and yell and scream and say, I'm going to will it a certain way. This is a time. This is a time to let the world unfold. So if you're just joining me, this is the Crystal Ball Hour on KUHS Denver, the stream, my personal favorite radio station. I just have to say that. We have some amazing shows later today too, so when I'm done, don't go anywhere. But we still have about 15 minutes for you to ask me a question in the Facebook site. You know you want to read it. We've had 2 brave souls. You know you want me to talk to you. And I'm just kind of cruising through here to see if anyone has posted anything. I finally learned you have to often sort of hit the reset button, right? You got to do something. It's so funny to me because so many times when I'm somewhere and I'm doing free readings, which I just did for a friend on the show. I've definitely done them many, many times. Actually, one of my friends has started a business, and I did free readings for people in her business to help start her. Everybody wants a reading. People will line up for readings, and here you are, hypnotized by my voice and not asking questions. Okay. So, why Phenix Rising? So, I'm going to talk about that for a few more minutes. I decided to put a class together on this, and I'm recording it now, and I will actually be emailing out to my mailing list, which you can get on my mailing list by going to my website. That's how you go. You go to my website, elisarobin.com. There'll be a pop-up. You put your email in. You actually get a recording back if you do that on dealing with life as an empath. And I'll be doing a mailing out soon about this class that I'm offering that I've built. And I'll also be posting the link on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. And it's going to be, I think it's 4 lessons and the 4 steps. The first is to notice what has burned off. So it's a noticing week, what's burned off. And every week what I'll do is ask you some questions for reflection. I'll give you some exercises to do. And at the end, I'm going to suggest a small ritual. Now, just get it. Rituals aren't scary, right? We all have our rituals. I have rituals, something I do before I come on the radio. We all have morning rituals. We get up, we do the same 5 or 6 things in a row, and that helps us launch our day. We all have it. And it'll just be a ritual to help you sort of incorporate the lessons from the first week into who you are. The second, so each week we'll have that, a reflection, exercises, and ritual. So the first week is what burnt off. Please notice it, right? And this is that part where I talk about symmetry. What is symmetrical, what is not in your life. The second week we'll talk about, the second part, and we'll have a full week on looking in your closet and looking around your house and maybe listening to what you say. What are the words you use? How do you articulate your statements? How do you discuss people, and do you discuss other people? What do you do? How does language, language affects what we think and what we do, right? What we say affects what we think affects how we act, what how we act affects our future, frames our karma. Our attitudes come from that. So, the third week will be about relationships. That might be the toughest week. What relationships might you have to let go of? What might have run its course? And what might you now be willing to embrace? What is new now for you? And maybe you don't want to let a relationship go, but how do you change the relationship? And then week 4 will be rising from the ashes. How do you then reinvent yourself? How do you embrace all those lessons you've learned? What have you subtracted? And now what are you seducing to you? So we'll go through those 3 steps that I work with my clients on: symmetry, subtraction, seduction. And then we always do a little bit of sustainability. How do I keep this going in my life? And remember, sustainability does not mean that we don't change. It means we stay adaptable. I just need to take a drink of water here, excuse me. Colorado is so dry when it's dry. I do love Colorado, but drinking fluids is important. Okay, let me see. I'm wondering if you have thoughts about that. But it will be a workshop that I will be offering the next few weeks, just so you know. I will be talking about Phenix Rising on the Dr. Elisa show, and probably walking you through some of the exercises, some of the oh, Mary, thank you for posting. I just saw yours. I'll be walking through some of that the next few weeks, and then offering the class that you can take, which will be probably pre-recorded, but you'll have access to me through it. Mary, thank you for posting. I'm so sorry you lost your son at a young age, and oh my gosh, isn't that difficult? Always be scared of having readings. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. I really appreciate that, because this is so funny, right? I took a class on astrology, and the very first thing they talked about was the ethics of astrology. And I've told you the things that I won't read, right? I won't do your health. If you ask me about your health, I'm going to tell you to go to your healthcare practitioner. If you ask me about the stock market, I'm going to say work with a wealth advisor. I never predicted the election. And I have a sense of obligation that when I read for people, that again, through the eyes of love, that what you're getting is not hurtful. First off, do no harm, right? Do no harm. Might you hear something that makes you cry? Yes. Might you hear something that makes you wonder about where, if you've walked in your right direction? Maybe. But remember, the kinds of readings I do, they're the guides trying to help you. Astrology, taking you forward. You're not broken. You're not flawed. And tomorrow, every morning, is a new chance. And I know they're scary. I have to tell you. I'm not going to tell you what, but I am going to tell you that I took a big step yesterday into something new and scary for me. And I shut down that part of my brain that yaps at me all the time and went with my heart. And that was marvelous. So I do this too. I've learned that the people I trust to read for me, my astrologer, a couple psychic friends, a couple channelers I know, a shaman I know, I've had a few of them on the show. I've had Rebecca Rosen on, I've had Paula Elizabeth on. You can find them on Facebook. They're amazing, or just by Googling them. They're absolutely incredible. That readings that are helpful. Sometimes we get a little bit of a lecture, right? But it's through kindness and through love. So Mary, I'm glad you feel the energy. I'm so sorry for your loss. And because you're afraid of having a reading, I'm not going to pull the energy for you right now, do the reading for you. But I will tell you something. I will tell you that there is a young woman, a young woman guide around you, who and it's interesting because I usually don't get young women guides. I usually get old women guides, right? Because when we're older, we're wiser, I guess. But you do have love around you. You are surrounded by love, and that maybe at times the best thing for you to do is to sit and breathe in the way you're loved, and that love does not die. And I'm so sorry you lost your son, but the love that he had for you does not die, and it was real, and it was true. I hope those words are helpful, and I so appreciate you asking that question or making that statement. Thank you. So I'm just going to refresh and see if we've got somebody else asking another question. I'm trying to multitask technology, multitask crystal balls, and multitask astrology at the same time. Okay, so right now I don't see anybody else. What I am going to do is then come back in and let's do a little more astrology, because things have been so crazy, right? And again, I'm not telling anyone what to believe or how to believe or how to choose or how. I'm not telling you that. All I'm saying is that when we live our lives through anger, and we've been doing a great deal of that. Mars went retrograde many weeks ago. Time is so interesting. And it's about to go direct. And when it went retrograde, we all got stuck in that place of having to face our fears. And we often reacted with anger. Anger towards ourselves, anger towards others. And that is not our highest self. I'm just saying, that's not, might be authentic in the moment, but it's not. When we are fearful and acting angry, that's not authentic. And are we fearful? Oh my gosh, are we fearful? There's this pandemic thing, right? And we can't figure out how to get it under control. And then people yell at us and tell us how to get it under control, and we walk around afraid that we're doing the wrong thing or we're doing the right thing, but we're trying to be good and we're not sure how to do it, and we're tired, and we're lonely, and we're scared. Then there's this election thing and we're scared. And then in Colorado there's these fires and we're scared. And where's the snow? Because it's winter and oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And then the stock market goes up and down if you've got enough money to be in it, and the economy goes up and down, and do we have jobs? We're scared. And here's the message I just want to give you. And we're coming to the end of my time on this show. And my message is that the fear is what we need to face. And we need to embrace. And we need to walk into it. Outward Bound says that if you can't get out of it, go into it. Because the planets have set us up to burn that fear off, to see our fear, to burn through it, and to see clearly that the answer is to walk forward, looking at the world through the eyes of hope and kindness, and hopefully love, perhaps love. But you know, if you can't get to love, you can get to kindness. If you can't get to kindness, you can get to hope. And when you start seeing the world that way, and that is where the planets are going. Jupiter and Saturn on December 19th, I'm going to have a party, are going to move into Aquarius. And we are going to open our eyes that morning and go, wow, the world is different. Okay. Or maybe I'm different. I see the world differently. So I'll tell you what, we have reached the end of my time. I want to thank you for listening. I really want to thank the brave people who posted in my Facebook site. I want to remind you that you can have a private reading. You can find me at elisarobin.com, and I've got packages, and I've got one-time readings, and I've got SOS readings, which are also called sometimes WTF readings, just to be there for you, to help you shift, to help you rise like a phoenix. Keep listening to my shows. I'll be on next Thursday at 11 here on KUHS Denver The Stream. And now I'm just going to leave you with this last thought, that you can move from fear to hope, to maybe kindness, to maybe love. And when you do, what you will find comes back at you is hope and kindness and love. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you, or you'll see me, next week.